Welcome to the Business Growth Podcast. Today I'm here with Jocelyn, the founder of Cider Road. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit more. What do you guys do at Cider Road?
We focus on working with businesses and specifically mostly family run businesses to make sure that they're running smoothly, which we all know is a challenge for a lot of families. And family businesses have an interest to me because they're basically 85% around the GDP for most countries, every city, state, and again, countries. So by having a focus on the family, and the definition of family has totally changed, as we all know. So oftentimes, two people who are working together were college friends or from high school or elementary school, or a parent is now working for this son or somebody in the family, and obviously other ways. And I've noticed with AI and how it's actually been moving forward so quickly that I've seen a proliferation of people who are starting to work together. So the family run businesses are becoming even more of a focus.
Nice. And where would you say your passion comes from for family businesses? It seems like from our previous conversation, you have like a big passion for that. So where would you say that comes from?
It was happenstance, first of all, because when after I left working corporately and went back to school and got my MBA, in my early 50s, a lot of the clients that were coming to me through referrals who happened to be family run businesses. In addition, my brothers work together. My nephew works with my brothers. So it's standard. There's everybody who is even watching this podcast. We all know people who are working together who are family.
Right, gotcha. And then I know like previously you worked for some other organizations. Then what led you to then decide, hey, you're gonna start your own business?
Ah. Well, I had a great career. I worked at Hachette Filipaki as the global editorial director for the digital products for 20 plus magazines. I have worked for Rolling Stone, Us and Men's Journal, and that corporate name is called Wenner Media, producing television and syndicated radio. And I worked for Colin Cowie, who is an event producer. He's the global #1 event producer who produces milestone events for the world's elite, in addition for him being a designer. And because that particular position was so global, I loved it. It was 13 years long, but I was in my 50s and I knew it was going to be very hard for somebody to hire me, even with all my experience. So I became an adjunct business school professor. I'm an author with Simon and Schuster, and I mushed it all up. And what I did was I started to reach out to people who knew me and I knew, and put up a shingle and then started in on the networking. And it just happened.
Yeah, nice. And how have you found the transition from working for someone to working for yourself?
I really prefer this at this point, only because I have 40 plus years experience. So I have never not stopped working. I mean,
Hmm.
I've always been working. And my husband and I collectively have 6 children. So even through all of that, I've always worked. And I have found that it's easy to do a business as long as you stay focused. Getting sidetracked city and going down a lane of something that's going to take you off the track of what you really want to do is easy. So you really have to stay on top of what you want to achieve. In addition, you really have to listen to what other people who you respect, who have been successful to help you down those roads. You can't do it by yourself. It's just not real.
Yeah, the old like shiny object syndrome, basically, just
Correct.
trying to do a bunch of different things and then not doing any one of them very well,
Correct.
essentially.
That is
Um,
very, very true. And you need the help.
yeah. And then how did you initially, like when you were starting out your business, how did you go about getting your first couple of clients? You said a little bit you were doing a bit of networking and everything. How did that look like the early stages of the business?
That was pretty easy in the early stages because most of my contemporaries and colleagues and even old bosses were still working. Now, my contemporaries and colleagues are retired, most of them. So
Right.
I had to shift into joining networking groups. And I really had to learn about tapping on people who know me, from neighbors to
Mm,
neighbors' friends. I had to call, family members. Do you know anybody who could use me? Old vendors that I had worked with. I mean, when you start to really think about it, you should really consider putting an A, B, and C list together. A is you can call them and they're going to take your call. B is
yeah.
you might have to reach out a few times on email, and how do you approach that? And then C is the typical funnels that people set up all these emails and start reaching out blindly. But you
Yeah.
just have to do the work. There's no way around it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and that it is interesting because I've heard it's like usually the most valuable collection connections is that like second degree plus of connections, not the person that you know immediately, but the person that they know, because usually the person that you know immediately is pretty similar to you.
Yeah.
But then the person that they know, that's like really where that extra value is made. So yeah, that's really interesting that you were saying with the different buckets and
Yeah,
everything.
I think the other thing that's really important is that you have when somebody like you and I did the other day, so tell me about yourself. We both did that. That has to be very crisp and clear, and that's a recipe how to answer that. In fact, I
Hmm.
teach that not only to my
Yeah.
students that I teach in college, but it's a program to answer that properly, because a lot of us start with, oh, I have 6 children and 3 dogs and I live here and I do. That is not what people in business are actually asking you.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
And then what are some of like the projects now that you guys are working on internally at Cider Road?
Okay, good question. Well, a lot of the families, one way that I position myself when I'm talking to people is I'm an interim CEO or a super nanny to family run businesses. So I come in, I help them establish protocols or look at what systems they're using and set them up for success while training them. That might mean hiring, firing, collapsing, launching something new. But my goal is not to stay there. My goal is just to train, teach, if you will, and then move on. And I'm also creating a platform for family run businesses, which allow them to get all the documents that they need up front. Because a lot of times what I see is a mess financially, and they don't have all the proper documents to set themselves up for success. If it's succession or meeting notes, I mean, the simple stuff to the complicated stuff. And if that isn't running well and in place, just like any other business, right? That the formal business, not a family business, all of those things are in place before they really launch and start making money.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, nice. And so when you say like doing the fractional CFO and being the nanny, is that kind of like you're looking to expand that in terms of what you're
Yes, I
working on?
always,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I'm not a CFO, it's a COO or CEO.
Yeah,
I certainly have that skill set, but normally when it comes to the finances, I like to bring in experts. I always bring in my experts who touch upon whatever that business needs, because the truth is it's not so much the people are my clients, the business is. So if you can parlay that information in a non-threatening way to the owners, they can see what will happen down the road if they do this or if they don't do that.
yeah.
So did that answer the question? I hope.
Yeah, so essentially, like as you grow, I find it's like your network and connections that you have become
Yeah.
more and more important, and the people that you have working for you, essentially.
So the other thing is interim CEO, which is basically consulting for a company. I also offer going off site for a weekend or 3 days or 4 days and working directly with the owners and whoever the stakeholders are, not in the office. So there's one where I'm actually in the office and doing things all the time, and then there's one where I'm not. And we all
Right.
group together and go down that. And of course, the platform, which is AI driven, that I just told you about, that is my focus to get that launched because it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. Okay. And then any other goals that you're working on at the moment internally for the business?
I have another book coming out, and the book is going to be on your reputation, because that's bar none the most important thing. Individual reputation. So it's not a company reputation I'm referring about, but it's employees who are looking to change careers and people to help you. So, because I had a great reputation, people were willing to help me. If I had a crappy reputation, I probably would not have gotten as much help and referrals as I did.
Yeah.
So that is bar none the most important thing for people to focus on. And it's not branding, it is literally your reputation. And people check you out all the time. They talk about it. I mean, it's human nature. So it's focusing on making sure that what comes out of your mouth and how you parlay your behavior is what you want people to know about you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And what made you decide to write like your first book? I know you said this is another book,
The
implying you
first
wrote.
one,
Yeah, where did the motivation come from? Like, hey, let's write a book.
oh, because I'm from Buffalo, New York,
Okay.
originally, which is a decent sized city, but nobody then taught us in the 80s how to expect office politics to work. It was not, nobody even knew what the word meant. So because I worked at advertising agencies in Philip Morris, which is now Atria and Winter Media and Hachette, there was literally no book to say, do this, don't do that. And office politics is something that is never going away. With all the AI in the planet, you still have to know what to expect from other people and how you should respond to that to move forward. Um, and I wrote the book because there wasn't one. I mean, there was literally nothing to tell you a guidebook, like, show up early and leave late. That's an obvious one. But I made plenty of mistakes. I mean, I cleaned up my boss's office once, which was insanely unorganized, and that's how he liked it. He was upset with me. Don't touch people's stuff, you know?
Yeah,
So, and there's a lot of terms I didn't know. So at the end of the day, I didn't know what that meant. At the end of the day does not mean at the end of a day. It means at the end of our relationship or how I want this company to perform. I want this to be successful. There's a
yeah,
lot of terms that people don't realize what it really means. Grandfathered in. That's an old term, but it means that if you're first on a service, you most likely will keep that amount that you're paying, or if it's free, forever. That's what
yeah,
grandfathered meant.
yeah.
I needed a book like that.
Okay,
That's why I wrote it.
nice. Yeah, it's like humans are gonna be humans,
Correct.
basically. There's always gonna be politics if you're interacting with another human, basically.
Always.
Yeah. Okay. And then changing gears a little bit, how about like for your business, what's working well right now, and what's working not as well as what you would like?
I think the combination of working with mastering the digital marketing, because it's all algorithmic,
Yeah.
and hiring those people who you trust to make sure that you're set up for success, in addition to networking, in addition to operating, is a lot of work. And so I seem to be training all the time, new people who are joining the company and networking a lot. So the challenges I have is making sure that everybody's up to speed, both on the client side and internally. So, as much as AI at this moment is a wonderful tool, it's still new in a way. I mean, you really have to be a seasoned person to use that, to ask and prompt in the right way. So, in the end of the day, it's almost easier for me to go call somebody and go do that work rather than depending on AI because they skip or they delete or whatever it happens. So, as much as I love AI, it is a challenge to keep up with it because you have to remember what you had in the first place that you like that it deleted.
Right.
So, and also the challenge is getting families to step up to the plate. A lot of mid-sized firms don't think they need the help, but I always make the analogy that this is very similar of going to the doctor. I mean, we all mostly go to the doctor once a year for a checkup, and so should family businesses, and take it very seriously because the failure of family businesses from one generation to the next is very high. And that's because a lot of the people who are running them think they know best. No offense to anybody. Sometimes you do, but oftentimes you don't because there's so many new procedures and protocols and benchmarks and software that could make it go a lot faster. So you're kind of hurting yourself when you don't have a doctor or a nanny show up every once a year or once a quarter.
Yeah, and the thing I like to say as well is like you don't know what you don't know. You don't
Correct.
know how much money you're losing each month because maybe you're doing your taxes a certain way. You don't know how much money you're leaving on the table because maybe you're not doing this one thing. And it's really crazy how much these little things can scale your business by getting external help for someone that's like, hey, did you think about doing it like this? And you're like, oh, I never thought about it. I've always done it like this.
And I would
Um,
say most people who are like me, we're really here to help. Of course, we want to be paid, obviously, but the idea is if you're successful, I'm successful. This is truly meant to be goodwill.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I usually view it as well. It's like if they're making money, then usually I'm making money. If they're losing money, they're probably not going to keep working with me as well. So it's in my best interest to also get them a good result.
Well, and also because you're working with so many different generations, you have to know the language for each generation. You and I were talking about this yesterday, where I'm pretty good at talking to people in their 70s to people in their 20s. So that's very important to make sure that you're hitting those buttons that inspire people to continue to want to work with you or to feel that you're a trusted person on their
Yeah.
side.
Oh yeah, yeah. Getting into like motivation is like a whole different thing, and you're keeping people wanting to show up to work, do a good job.
Yes.
It's really fascinating, all that psychological stuff.
But you have to train. I can do it easily with my team, but I have to train whoever is paying the bills or who is part of leading the operation how to do that properly too, and not get frustrated. And that goes for the people dealing with the owner as well. So it goes both sides because you've got plenty of generations in between.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, yeah. And then, so the things that they're not working as well is
Is the
challenging
AI?
keeping everyone up to speed, making sure like showing clients the value or prospects the value and working with someone like that essentially.
Yeah, yes,
And okay,
it's a road, but I have enough business, and I mean it's great, and I'm very, very grateful. Very grateful. So one thing always leads to the next, and I never panic.
yeah,
If you start freaking out and panicking and stressing what's happening next, then I feel like the universe knows that. So the staying
mm,
calm and making sure that you have an open mind and engaging with the opportunity it's all there. You just have to
yeah.
note it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like I will also always say like momentum creates momentum in terms of good momentum and bad momentum. So like you're saying, if you start panicking, it's like a downward spiral. Whereas if you stay calm, it's like I guess more even. And then if you start winning, it's like an upward momentum. So it's really interesting that.
I wish I had known that in my 40s when I was a single mom. I mean, it was very scary. There's a lot of people who are single and raising children and whatever else the stress in their personal life. So when I am working with the family, one of the things I really do is talk to every single person who's in the stakeholders and find out what's going on personally, because that probably is an effect of if a job is working or if a job is not working for them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know we're starting to run out of time here. It's really gone by quickly. Let's
Yeah.
finish on what are some like your favorite quotes in business? Do you have any like favorite quotes that you keep coming back to?
Yes. One thing I say resentment is not pretty. So if you are out there and have a resentment towards somebody else, either resolve it or let it go because it's going to affect how you work, your work out product, your relationship, and most likely you're the one who's thinking about it. And also, options are oxygen. So it is really important that we all keep our options open. Even if you have the best job in the whole world, or you're the best leader of your company and you love what you do, thinking ahead 2 or 3 years of where all of this is going to go, or what are your talents could be applied to, is very important so you don't ever feel cornered.
Mhm. Nice. Yeah, those are two good ones. Um, well, it's been great having you on the show. Where
Yeah.
can people go to learn a little bit more about you and what you do?
Okay, sure. So the website is Cider Road, which is spelled SIDERROAD.com. And you can always info at Cider Road or Jocelyn, there's my name at Cider Road. And happy to, reach out and talk and connect and do a Zoom or meet in person and see if it works.
All right, awesome. Well, I'll include the links in the show notes below. I
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on. You guys have been listening to the Business Growth Podcast. Until next time, keep growing.
Mm.